do so outside and is currently a director on the board of Citigroup Saudi Arabia. She was named in 2023 one of the top 100 most powerful businesswomen by Forbes Middle East. Another one. I wasn't kidding when I told you we have some powerhouses here. So, Monica Andres Enriquez, you met her earlier. She asked a question. She is CEO of Yara International. She's been an executive in the C-suite for now 25 years. She's also a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate. And of course, she has ranked high in Yara's, major business, which is in the fertilizer industry, okay? And then last on my right, but not least, is Silvia Davila. She is president of Danone for Latin America, and also serves as CEO for Mexico, okay? She has been in other retail organizations, McDonald's, Procter & Gamble in the past, and she has been ranked one of the top 10 most powerful women in Mexico. Please give her a hand as well. So, unlike the men, I want to know a little bit more personally about the women. So, starting with Rola, are you an only child?
First of all, thank you very much, Irene, for inviting me to be on this panel. I think it's wonderful to be in a room with very accomplished women, and thank you very much. And welcome all to the UAE. I'm not an only child. I have a brother who is 4 years younger than me.
Are you the eldest?
I am the eldest, yes.
So what did you study when you were in college?
So I studied mathematical engineering. So I always liked math, physics, chemistry. And when I came back here, there wasn't really, it was not easy to find where can I work in mathematical engineering because you need to work in industries.
So what made you decide to shift from engineering to banking? Was that part of the transition and when you discovered finding a job in engineering was not that easy?
So mathematical engineering, which is under operational research, you tend to work in industries and it's all about how do you optimize profits and control efficiency. Make sure there's efficiency, control cost. So it's very much in part of the finance world. And this is what attracted me to work in banking. Now, when I started in banking, there were very few women in banking at that time, which is in the early 90s. And it was very common that I would be in a room with all men and I would be the only woman. I think till, I would say, the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's probably true for the others in this group. Any children?
I have two. My daughter's 26, she's a lawyer, and my son is 23. He's currently doing his master's in King's. He's done finance and moved to economics.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm going to go to my left here and asking Silvia the same questions. You know, nobody springs a CEO from birth, so I want people to get to know more about you. Yeah. When you were starting out, what kind of a career did you have in mind?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Irene, for the invitation, and really a privilege to be here to speak to you all. So you're asking me a question that really touches, really deep in my heart. So, no, I didn't grow up to become a CEO. That was not my dream. It was a not very sexy dream, but I only wanted financial independence. So pretty much that's what I really needed. So I come up from a family where we're three. My dad passed away when I was 7. So my mom became the sole breadwinner. So working for me was not a nice to have, but a really thing that I needed, a must, to pay for my studies. and to be able to have always a scholarship, so having good grades and sitting in the first row was part of what I needed to keep my grades. And then one thing led to the other, always working. So really becoming a working mom was something that came natural because I came from a working mom. So whenever I need to give speeches to women of feeling but this kind of, what do you do with your kids? Well, you do with your kids what my mom did with me, so.
It all came so naturally. So
You go, you work, and you make, there's nothing that you couldn't do. So that's the big message that I got from my mom. There's no limit on what you can do.
hooray for mothers.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. So, knowing that financial independence was your goal, how did you end up in retail companies? McDonald's and Danone and P&G.
Well, actually, I went for undergrad in marketing, and my McDonald's story is because I needed to work while being in the university, so I needed to pay for my tuition. And then being a marketing undergrad, well, clearly we were seeing some presentation yesterday from P&G. I still have a tattoo of P&G someplace there, because it's the company that formed me as a marketeer. So really, I went into P&G for strategy and for better marketing, and then my life took me into big corporations and working for food and really being meaningful on consistency in the values and consistency on creating long-lasting strategies. So that's the way that I built my career in big corporations, but that was really the guiding principle, a connection with values and connection with meaningful impact, not only for the consumer, but for the whole supply chain.
Working during college is something that I did as well, and I learned more for every little job that I had than some of the courses that I actually took.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you had life lessons from your mother as well. So, very strong background in independence period.
Thank you for those questions.
Yeah, Ebru, tell us about your background.
I'm a computer engineer by education. I'm from Turkey, although I haven't lived in Turkey for almost 20 years now. I've only worked in financial institutions. When I was graduating from computer engineering, one thing was certain for me: I wasn't going to work with machines. I wanted to work with people. That was number one. Number two, I wanted to make a lot of money when I was graduating from school. So I went on to work for a financial institution. That was my desire. I ended up starting in the technology department with the same bank, Citigroup. I've been with the bank now for 26 years. I worked in 4 different locations. I've done global roles. I've run businesses. And now for the last 18 months or so, I'm here based in the UAE, and I'm running our Middle East and Africa region. I always wanted to run a business. Did I want to be a CEO when I started? No, but I wanted to run a business.
Where did that come from? Parents? Somebody? Where?
Yeah, maybe family. It's an accomplished family. I lost my mom when I was very small. I was 4 years old when my mom passed away. And it was my grandparents who raised me up. So perhaps there was always a little bit of, I wanted to stand on my feet and give back to them in terms of what they invested in. So there was always a bit of that. But I like taking ownership of things. I think that's what success is about. You have to own up to what you're doing. You have to like it, you have to enjoy it, you have to nurture it. I don't have kids. I have a family, I have a husband, and I enjoy both sides of my life. But I do care about my work life, and maybe we'll get to talk about it later on. Careers don't happen by themselves. You do make some sacrifices, and you have to care about a career, and I did.
Well, you certainly have grown that career, so congrats. Yara, tell them a little bit what Yara is, because you're CEO of an interesting company.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Irene. I'm very happy. I'm very grateful that you invited me to participate. It's my first time in this Global Women's Summit. I am fascinated about this. I really feel at home. Really. I'm a Spanish national. I come here with a Spanish delegation. But I've been working in Asia Pacific and also in Europe now with Yara. Yara is a global company, it's a chemical company that has footprint in more than 60 countries. We produce fertilizers that eventually are to feed the crops. And those crops will produce food for the population, for the growing population. So working and contributing for this mission that is feeding the world in the end and protecting the planet as well because of the scarce resources that we have makes it very meaningful for me. It's very similar to what you said. Working for a company which values are pretty much aligned to mine made me be very motivated and contributing.
What was your educational background? How did you end up with a chemical company?
Yeah, I'm passionate about nature, and also technology. So when I had to choose my career, I went for engineer career, but I chose agronomist.
No.
So being a young agronomist, when I joined Yara 25 years ago in permanent contact with farmers, made it so relevant for me. There were not many women at that time, not even many more now, but in the end it made me be able to know what are the farmers' challenges to produce food as well, and how much they are impacted by the global warming as well. That they are the first impacted by that, by the lack of water, by the high temperatures, and they are also blamed about being the ones that are contributing to the greenhouse emissions. But they are the first ones that they want to make a change and reduce the impact.
Okay, just quickly, was it your parents who made you very sensitive to nature and, agronomy in general? Where did that come from?
That is a very good question. I would say...
Quickly.
It will be very quick. It was just by chance. My parents helped me out to be out in the field. We did a lot of trekking and rock climbing as well. Maybe that helped.
Yes, I'm sure it did. We just talked about transformational energy. There has been a transformation in the world of work. So for the first time, there has been a decoupling of work from the workplace. And so that was made possible because of technology. But we are in the midst of something that whose shape we still do not know in terms of the world of work. At the same time, during the pandemic, people had time to reassess and to figure out, what do I want to do from my work? And it has created transitions, personal transitions, so that among workers, so that there is a drought, say in the United States, in terms of workers in specific fields where there used to be plenty, specifically, for instance, retail, restaurant service, or any service industry. So I wanted to discuss with this panel the digital transformation and its impact in the world of work. So one of the transformations is the increased availability of what's called remote work, which a lot of us did. Everybody did it for the first time. Women always wanted flex work, and here it is. But it has also created consequences. Now most companies are moving towards something called hybrid work, which is a few days in the office and then some days at home. And home could be in any number of places. Somebody told me, an executive here said, I didn't realize to bring people back to the office, I had to entertain them. And I had to figure out ways to make them come in. So I wanted to find out from any of you, do you think we're headed towards a headquarters that's online as opposed to in office? We'll start with Rola.
Thank you. I don't think it will be fully virtual. I think what you'll have is a hybrid model. So if I can just give you some background, what we did in Standard Chartered. So our chairman came out in end of March in 2020 and said we are moving to the future of work. And this means that the hybrid model. Now, were we ready? No, we were not. But what we had to do is all of us align. So we rolled it out in 9 markets out of 59 countries. And UAE was the first market in the Africa Middle East region to adopt the future of work. So it required a lot of education and new ways of working. We always had the flexibility where you can choose 1 or 2 days at home to work, but that required, getting approval from your line manager. But this was talking about the whole organization, 90,000 people globally. So there was a lot of technology investments that we had to do. So what we did in the UAE, which was one of the very first markets, is people were still at home, working at home, and we had to bring them back in June. And luckily, Dubai was one of the first countries or cities to open globally, so that helped. To bring them back to office, and then we had to make sure that each of the staff, knows exactly what is entitled from them. And they had to select how many days they had to work from home and how many days they come to office. So currently we have 65% of the workforce in the UAE and globally that have a hybrid. So they choose 2 days or working from home and 3 days in office. Okay. Now, it is important you have a hybrid model because you need to keep the culture of the organization. When people just work remotely, you don't want to lose that connectivity between people, and they lose the momentum or really the interest in their jobs. And this is what we kept working on to make sure that the connectivity remains, the passion coming to office. So the office is more of coming for meetings collectively and more collaboration, we've noticed. And there's still a lot of meetings you will have virtual and in office, split half-half. But it's been now, we're in 2023, and I could say it's been working very well.
Okay. Now, Citi, I know, has had flexibility built. Citi has had flexibility built in for some time. Were there changes that you still had to make in order to make this kind of work schedule work?
Sure. Like you say, Irene, at Citi we had flexible working arrangements for a very long time. It did vary greatly, though, across different markets that we are operating in. I would say in most of the developed markets, those workforce arrangements were either informal or in many cases formal in terms of number of days of working from home, etc. Come COVID, then obviously all of that changed. For a period, we actually almost 100% worked remotely. That's about almost 300,000 people working remotely in more than 100 countries. That was obviously a very, very interesting experience. Now, last year, we formalized that into a similar structure to, I think, what Standard Chartered has done in terms of hybrid, resident, and fully remote workers. Majority of our workers are in that hybrid bucket with minimum 3 days in the office and 2 days of remote working. But I have to say you get still a variety in that hybrid because there are actually some people who do want to be in the office for 5 days. They are uncomfortable still not to be in the office, and that's perfectly fine. And I will say there are some people who need more than 2 days remote working, and that could be for various caretaking reasons, other issues and challenges. And we do actually encourage people to raise such needs, and we try to cater for them. I think for us, I want to just maybe pick on one or two things that we started to think about differently, and we are still working on this.
Yep.
One is, how do you deal with newcomers, right?
Yep.
Newcomers to the company or newcomers to the workplace in the first place. That's a really big challenge because training has a lot of apprenticeship involved, even in a financial institution and even in a very technical type of work, which might be something like coding, etc. That's very, very difficult to achieve apprenticeship when you're still doing remote only, or even few days in the office. So try to think about how we do that. And now we have a program which takes every individual who comes into the office through a 12-month program, which is called Hello City. And we try to do different things for them. We try to buddy them up with different people. We try to have a different curriculum for them in terms of number of days in the office. But that, I feel, is still something that we're going to have to figure out. Second thing is, you made a point about people want to come to the office, but they're looking for some entertainment or some benefit. I think what they're looking for is some engagement, some connectivity. We find a lot of people suffer from, so they come to the office, these are their 3 days in the office, but in the same department, others may be off on those days. So it feels a bit weird, right? To come into the office, you're pretty much one of the few people, so you still don't see others.
Yep.
So again, how do you plan for that so that it's actually about the group coming together and being able to spend together time, rather than just not being in the office? And the only other thing I want to say, because your original question, Irene, was about is the headquarters or is the office going to be fully remote? Foreseeable future feels like not. But the world is moving really, really fast. And what Web 3.0 or Meta or other things are going to be bringing to make people feel more comfortable with virtual, it's difficult to tell. I think it will change. One of the things that I'm sure is going to be changing is putting aside virtual working or putting aside digitization. I think the way we think about workforce is changing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
For the past 2-3 decades, we are running an organizational model which is all about, you have a hierarchy, there is a manager, there are individuals, they got job descriptions, and this is your job, this is who you report to. Depending on the type of company you might have some matrix reporting or whatever. When there is a project, you might put people into a project, but they work on that project on a short-term basis. This is the world that I have grown up, and I think a lot of my peers and colleagues would have grown up in a similar world. I think that world will change. I think those organizational boundaries are actually falling down. And it's becoming more about the individual, their skill set, their expertise, and trying to more tap into that. So I feel like it's going to be almost like, hey, we have a project here, we have a program, we have a product to build. Who are the best placed people in the whole of the company to be able to do this? And you go and tap into them, and maybe they work together for 18 months, and then they fall apart again. So I don't know exactly what that will mean in terms of performance management, comradeship, team building, teamwork, even management, people management is going to have to change.
I mean, it's a journey, and nobody really knows where it's headed. Now, the two of you work for companies that produce products. There are people who cannot work remotely. So let's begin with you and tell us how has it evolved, the workplace, in your specific companies? Has it evolved at all? Beginning with you.
Thank you. Yes, certainly the blue collars cannot work from home. So they have to be in the plants, in the factories. And but there are also elements of being connected that help their own work. That is virtual reality. As an example, we have developed digital devices that are wearable and also smart glasses. So for difficult and dangerous tasks, that's not just one person that is exposed because he is with a team behind. So there are more people looking at what he is doing and listening what he is listening to. So, and that is very important now, and this is something that the digital transformation is also helping to reduce the number of accidents. Yara is very much committed to 0 accidents. And we have that, for instance, in Uusikaupunki in Finland, but we have it in many other factories.
So it promotes safety, but does it reduce work hours? Does it change how they work?
The way they work more safe under more safety conditions. They are permanently connected with the rest of the team, and that helps also to enhance the quality of the job that they are doing.
And creates pride.
Of course.
I'm going to take it from given a different angle, because you're saying, right, I come from an industry, really is food. So the way that we live the pandemic personally, once it started, in my region, there's 20,000 employees. Only 8% of them could have a virtual kind of work. The other 92%, they are either in factories, they are facing consumers. So those kept on working because we are essential dairy products. And you cannot turn off a cow, or the picture is not very pretty. So you needed to keep the supply chain going. So very fast, we needed to learn that we needed to work differently. But when we discuss the future of work, I think that we need to be asking, are we asking the right questions? So coming after what we were just discussing on energy transition and the house is on fire, I do think that when it comes to the future of work, the house is also on fire. I do think that, yes, there's a case for change for hybrid, and there's a lot of learnings on how to go to hybrid types of working, but it's only 40% of the jobs globally that could go into that type of working. There's 60% of jobs where we can start asking ourselves, where is it that our food is going to come from if farmers do not want to farm anymore? Or at least they don't want their kids to farm anymore. They want them to go and have a different life. So this is the moment where really the house needs to think differently on how are we using technology, how are we using data, how are we transitioning? Because again, 60% of the jobs cannot go from working from home. Yeah. So that is a lot of where the conversation for us is taking place in Danone, or how do we upskill people? How do we work better with our farmers? How do we create better living conditions? To the point also of how do we create a second life with packaging where we can create value? But discussing the whole supply chain is really to take care of the future of labor. It's very different, and I don't think that we are yet asking the right questions.
That's a very good point to raise, because clearly, yes.
Thank you.
Clearly the children of those working in those factory jobs or supply chain jobs may not want to do that in the future, so where are your workers going to come from? Exactly. So this is what I mean about transition happening all at once. Do any of you know or feel that you know the final shape of your workforce, whether it is primarily, administrative, managerial, or whether it is in production? I think the point that you raise about who are your future workers is well taken. I wanted to mention that there was a study in the US recently, and it showed that indeed hybrid work is beginning to dominate as the work pattern, but that there has been a significant loss in productivity. How do you measure performance? What are now the new ways of measuring performance when you don't necessarily see your workers every day? What are the new metrics? Anybody?
So Irene, if I can take this question. So just this year, we moved from purely rating focused to just giving feedback. to employees.
Say that again. Repeat that so people
So,
understand what that
in
means.
general, our performance rating in banking was you would give a rating based on the performance of that colleague. And there's a number of metrics around it, which is if you met your numbers, if the targets, and a number of things. Now, this year, it was scrapped. Which made it initially difficult. How do I rate my team? How do I judge if they've performed or not? But why did we do this? Because your Gen Z and Gen Y, they're not gonna come and work to the old-fashioned banking way. They do not want to come to bricks and walls. So there's certain jobs, like traders, they have to be in office all the time. Branches, they have to be in office, and that's understandable. But there are other jobs, and especially when the young ones come into the organization, they will tell you, I need to work in an organization that has a purpose, cares about wellness, and I have a career growth. So I always tell my employees, if you don't have a passion to come to work every day or to get up and work wherever it is every day, then don't bother working in the organization. You have to be passionate about what you do, regardless, because sometimes some people could be in the wrong job. But it's the younger generation, how do we attract them? How do we be the employer of choice? And that's why now we have the 360 feedback. We launched also a discovery platform, which is how do you invest yourself. So we encourage the employees to invest in themselves. The training, it's not going to be coming into a hall and being trained. It's going online, training yourself, learning on new topics in banking, like the earlier topic on sustainability. I mean, as a bank, we're very big in it. So we encourage everybody to learn about sustainability and giving the feedback to each other as feedback. And that's very important. And from this overall, as well as giving them the option of a marketplace, what we call a marketplace, which is pulling them in different projects. And that's how you really show them that they have a career growth in this bank. Because this is what they want. They want the commitment, and they want the passion to come to work and that sense of purpose.
Can I share with you something? We do a colloquium on global diversity every year in New York. And in the last one of the experts shared with us, they had a group of trainees who learned primarily from a screen, right? The training was online. And then they had a group of trainees in office, in person. And what they discovered was that, and they would chat with each other, what they found was that the group that was trained in office was more creative and productive than the group that only learned from online. And I thought that was very interesting. Anyway, just as an aside.
So I think in terms of performance management, we have not changed or adapted our performance management for hybrid working. Having said that, some of what Rola just shared in terms of 360 feedback, etc., that was already part of our performance management. For some years now, we actually have two different things that we look at and rate individuals for. One is the what were their deliverables, could be hardcore numbers, could be hardcore projects, and the other is how, where we actually rate people in terms of the ability to partner with others, the ability to lead, the ability to demonstrate ownership, etc. So those were already there. I think that second part, exactly to your point, is very helpful then in thinking about the remote environment and that connectivity. But going back to, are we really becoming less productive? And maybe the example that you're giving, Irene. Again, I think for my peer group and age group, and I am making sure I'm not being age discriminist here, I think for us, I mean, for me, I learn much better in a classroom. There's no question about it. I am much better when I'm with people and I can do maybe case studies with them and actually do a table conversation with them. Although recently I'm on Duolingo learning new languages, and I have to say I quite like that as well, and new technology can be useful. But I find for the new generations, they actually do learn really well online. And some of them, not all, and this should be a different concern for us as a society, but some of them are in fact not very comfortable in classrooms because they find it difficult to sit somewhere all the time and listen to someone who's speaking, and those interpersonal relations are actually becoming more difficult for them. So I think this productivity challenge, if there is one, could be more of these generational clashes and what people are more comfortable producing in different stages of their career, and maybe what the new generations are actually going to be capable of when it comes to productivity.
Excellent. Is there a generational gap between workers in your respective companies, those that work in the production part, as well as those who are primarily in managerial or administrative jobs? What are you seeing in terms of engagement and, productivity among the different groups? Either of you.
Okay. Well, yes, there is a generational gap in both, in the administrative roles and also in the production roles, because there are different motivations for them to come to work in both generations. Last week it happened, I was in Berlin. In Berlin we have the digital hub. The average age is 30 years old. So I was thinking, when I joined Yara, some of them were not even born. So that was quite overwhelming. But then I mingled with them in the canteen, and so it was not the typical boardroom meeting with the president is coming there and it's one-line communication. It was more in the canteen, the setup that they organized. And then I realized there were a couple of dogs there. Dogs. And said, why are, well, because we have hybrid, we work hybrid. And then some of us work from home. And today, because we were coming, we wanted to be in the office, but we didn't have anyone to take care of our dogs. The company, this is an example to show that the company must enable the employees with the flexibility that the employees require. So in some cases, and for our generation, could be that we feel more comfortable being in the office almost every day and the face-to-face contact. For the new generation, either in the production sites or either in the offices, they need to be connected online, and they don't want to be for 2 hours meeting. The meetings have to be shorter. But also, we should not forget what is the personal contact. What we have implemented in Yara is at the beginning of any virtual meeting, we have like 15 to 20 virtual check-in. Likewise, when you get to an office and you tell about how high or low the temperature of your room was in the hotel, and how are you feeling, and what you feel like with the coffee because you don't like it or so. We utilize the first 15 minutes to connect to ourselves of the rest, because nobody knows what are the conditions that everyone is getting to the meeting. So we don't just jump into the topic of the discussion.
Okay. Sylvia.
I think that we've learned clearly that it's very evident that one size doesn't fit all, and that we need to be more attuned on understanding the needs of different populations. I do, however, recognize that we are social and that we actually thrive through interactions. So in an office space, when we lost it, people were really longing for those, because those are the ones that bring creativity, that brings a solution, that bring, again, sense of belonging. If not, you become a paycheck. So how do you strengthen the social aspect is something that we learn to do to the different target groups. And that...
Can I just
Sure.
interrupt and dig deep into that? What literally did the company have to do to maintain that social element that people do want? I mean, young people have been surveyed and they said they want mentors and they're not going to meet them online necessarily, informally, so that they could connect in terms of talking about dogs. And what have you done physically in your offices to make those social contacts happen? Because those were the ones that happened in the elevator, in the coffee, bar, if you will, even in the cafeteria.
Well, let me give you some examples. When it comes to factories and people that are in sales, is involving the families. Very important. So a lot of activities, either by training or bringing them to the space where they give that sense of belonging, because they want their families to feel the same pride they have on their work. That is a huge source of engagement. When it comes to the office, we totally redesigned the office. But again, office is only 9% of my population. But yes, we created spaces where if you go there, it's not to work online, it's actually to work in teams. And with that, what we make sure that it's consistent across the organization and the region is that we talk about purpose, we talk about values, and we talk about behaviors. So when you come to work, you know not only what you're doing as a unique contributor, but what's the ultimate goal that you're going after. And that creates that sense of ownership as a totality. So it's really strengthening the sense of community in every touch point you have.
How did you redesign the space? Because I know another company where they totally, they took out the cubicles, it became wide open, and then other companies that had wide open spaces started to put offices because the people said, we want some privacy. So as you said, one size doesn't fit all. But what did you all do at Danone?
We took out offices. We did. We just kept a lot of meeting rooms. We reduced the space as well. So we let go 30% of the space. We added a lot of chat rooms and meeting rooms and silent rooms. So if someone wants to go and have their quiet space, they have a room, several, which are the silent space. We gave up on the cafeteria as well, in terms of there are several eating spaces, and now we can order food of their liking, and so it's not a confined space anymore. And the people, they book their place, so they don't go to the same one, but yes, in the same neighborhood. So by function, they can be in 2 or 3 neighborhoods within the office. So, but they don't have a place in which they sit every time they go. So that gives them that kind of not owning your seat, but owning the space, and the space is community.
I got you. So women are the ones most likely to opt for remote work. How do you prevent them from becoming isolated from senior management because they're not seen and they can't talk informally about what they've just achieved or worked on? How do you ensure that they're still connected even if they opted primarily for remote work? Because there is a group of people, women primarily, who want that primarily.
So we don't encourage a 5-day. For us, they have to come to office, because if they stay 5 days at home, they will lose that connectivity. And even if, when you do these virtual or hybrid meetings, it is very important that you don't forget about those that are on VC, because you need to make sure that they are also connected. So it takes a lot of effort, and that's why it's a journey. But we are building for the future, because we know the future will always be hybrid. The future will always be that you want your employees to be inspired and to aspire and to innovate It involves a lot of communication. And that's why you encourage them to select few days that they come to office. We have very few offices because it is open space, but we've had that from before. And now we encourage it more, less office, more collaboration areas. So we also have a gym, which is some of it is a hybrid. It's a virtual screen also, you have your trainer. But it's building for the future of banking. I mean, banking is evolving. There are certain jobs in banking that with digitization, with everything, with all your banking needs on your mobile app, there are certain jobs that will disappear. But does it mean you will not have that interface interaction? No, because you still need to meet your relationship manager to discuss your wealth. But you have to cater for the different customer types. The younger ones will do everything on their mobile, even select their wealth management products. But there are certain ones that say private banking, they want that discussion face to face. So as long as you cater for your customers and at the same time you also cater for the different types or generations of your employees. But if it's one thing, it's all about communication. As you evolve on this journey, it's very important to keep that connectivity with your workforce, with your clients, to explain to them the future of banking.
Thank you. There was a McKinsey survey of workers recently, and do you know the number one thing that they want? Connectivity. While they revel in remote work, the possibility of it, what they want is to remain connected, and they wanted more investment from companies in connecting them. But they didn't specify whether that's online or in person. So, yeah.
I think that there's probably an element of both when it comes to connectivity. I mean, certainly, one of the things that we've been trying to do in terms of that connectivity is to come up with non-work related events that actually builds the community spirit with the teams. So to give an example, even though we've been doing this for many years now, we've probably sort of accelerated or enhanced the way we are doing it. Every year, we would have a day which is the community day. And that's actually typically over a weekend, although people can choose to figure out a work day where they can do this as well, where teams come together and work on a community activity of their choice in their own country or in their own neighborhood, which will actually help them build and deliver back to the society. And that's a great way of building team spirit and belonging.
And culture.
And culture, of course. So we are making an effort to do more of these type of opportunities, whether it's a company name day or whether it's an international day. Could be the International Women's Day, which turns into a big celebration, etc., etc. There are lots of opportunities to do that. I think one thing I want to also mention in terms of the connectivity point is over-connecting and what that means. Because even though remote working typically resonates with people as more convenient, etc., and should be better for well-being, I think there are now statistics and metrics which is showing that actually for the well-being, remote working isn't always working very well. And two things associated with that. One is the psychological burden of being alone all the time. And trying to focus on your work while you're still actually in a different surrounding with different requirements. Secondly, the challenge with remote work is it doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have an end.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what people's experiences in this room are, but when you're actually going to an office, yes, there is an enormous amount of time typically spent in transportation, but actually you go and you come out, and you might have to stay engaged with certain things on an evening, but psychologically, you know you are now out of work. When you're working remotely, that's a lot more difficult to achieve. And home and work life actually get a lot more commingled, which means remote working people seem to be working more longer hours, maybe only producing as much. And that's a challenge, and that's something that actually we are trying to guide people on in terms of how to think about it, to create that I'm on, I'm off time, use technology to do that. Many of the collaboration tools does allow you to actually set your status to offline, online, whatever, right? But it's not people's nature to get used to using them, and they have to. Because again, I mean, remote working doesn't always mean better. It's just different.
Yes. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. What about the two of you in your very different businesses?
Yeah. One advantage that we have on this new way of working is that we have access broader talent pool, and that also enhances the diversity and reduces the gender gap as well with this. So, and then to keep them, it's about getting them enrolled. I mean, I'm talking about women now, but also to keep them in the companies, also that they feel connected. So the connectivity they were asking for is crucial, not only in their own teams that they are reporting to, but also across the organization. And this is new, and that is also one of the advantages of the technology. The world has not ever been as connected as it is today. So now centers of competence, excellence teams dedicated to specific tasks, mentorship as well. Now we have implemented women in agronomy, for instance, that it's for young agronomists. I wish I would have that when I started. So they have the chance also to have this mentor that is digitally connected, and they can also share their experiences. But there is also reverse mentoring with female managers and leaders, but also with male leaders that had a better understanding what is the reality down in the floor, in the shop floor, in the production as well, because we have women in production and we have women in agronomy as well. So, and that makes it very interesting to get to know what is our workforce demanding. Also, we make also the annual surveys and also a quarterly surveys to measure the engagement. Because since we are now in a transitional period, it's very crucial to know what are the pain points and how we can fill the gaps on what meeting the demands of the employees working under these conditions now.
How do you measure engagement?
Yeah, we have.
I mean, especially in a production-oriented company.
Yeah, we make very relevant questions like, would you change your work, your job? What would motivate you to change? What would you, what would you improve if you could? If you have a silver bullet? What would be? Things like this, and then with that we test the temperature of the workforce.
Good, Sylvia, you have the last word.
Okay, but coming back to the original question, I think that it's important that when we discuss flexibility, it's not a women thing. So yes, they are going to, women will like it, but it's not for women.
Good.
So I am more interested in paternity leaves than in maternity leave, so we push a lot the paternity leave. And we just had 3 cases of men that they became the primary caregivers of kids and giving them 6 months fully paid. And we make a case out of it, so everybody knew about it.
Great.
Because really, the biggest concern is not the work in the office. The average working hours of women, this is Mexican statistics, women are working 40 hours a week in home chores versus 10 of men. So clearly double. So when they're working from home, we know that they are triple shifting. So that is my biggest concern, really, that they don't take the advantage for triple shifting rather than doing their job. So everything that is related to flexibility, we are also doing a lot of trainings on unconscious bias. So it's like we need more men, and thank you for the ones that are here interested in the topic, because we need more men helping women to develop. And that's where I put a lot of emphasis on coaching women, but coaching men to do the process. And on my last comment, thank you, 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030, they don't exist today.
Yes.
So this is us women that we can help create the jobs of the future. And the jobs of the future do not have any gender bias. So we can create them.
That's a
Thank you.
wonderful point to raise. I wanted for this panel to raise some of the issues because clearly there are no definitive answers at this point. All of us are in a period of transitions, all kinds of companies, businesses. And, you know, everybody keeps talking about we're in this inflection point. This is what it means. We don't really know the final shape of everything. But it's good for us to be aware of them. One of the things that I was thinking of, poor middle manager that now has to figure out how do you coordinate all this hybrid, schedules? How do you coordinate the workflow? And is anybody training them and giving them a pat on the back for making the company commitment happen to have remote and in-office work? So with that, thank you, please, for this terrific women leaders.